Hi, happy International Women's Day. It's Natasha Devon here with you, founder of the Mental Health Media Charter. And as promised, we're doing this special video reading and responding to some of the comments that you've submitted on social media in response to our discussion about the intersection between womanhood, stereotypes around femininity, misogyny, and mental health. I'm here, as you can see by this, at BBC London, where I've just done the paper review with Vanessa Feltz. And I've written down some of my favourite comments that have come from you in response to the YouTube videos on Twitter and Instagram. First of all, from Ellen Jones. Ellen is one of my favourite online commentators. She's Stonewall's Young Campaigner of the Year. She also talks about autism, mental illness, and is just very funny. She's very witty and clever. And she responded to the YouTube videos I did and said, it says something about the world that we live in that all of this is so relatable. So thank you, Ellen, for confirming that I was along the right lines with some of my theories about the way that womanhood and mental illness intersect. Brizzle Lass, she is one of the people who signed up to the Mental Health Media Charter. She has a blog in which she reviews books. And she responded to the just PMT comment. Another one of our followers said that her anxiety disorder was being dismissed constantly as just PMT. Brizzle says that it's not just men who are guilty of making this assumption, and that in fact her bipolar disorder was triggered by the hormones associated with PMS or PMT, and that a lot of women didn't necessarily understand that. So because their experiences of PMT weren't as severe or as traumatic as hers, they weren't able to wrap their head around her experiences. And she said that many women laughed at her. Yellow Ledbetter says that she has post-traumatic stress disorder, and one of the characteristics of post-traumatic stress disorder is that you can have triggers which to your average person don't mean anything, but because they're associated with painful past memories, and you relive those memories anew essentially when you have PTSD, there were these relatively small things which would cause her a lot of trauma and emotional distress. And she says she's lost count of the number of times when she's been told that she is overreacting or exaggerating. Now, interestingly, I was in a school just this week. I go into 3 schools every week, as you know, and we had a discussion around gender stereotyping. I do this exercise often. I ask young people to shout out words that they associate with men and women. We make an agreement first that nobody's allowed to offend each other. It's an offence-free zone because we're trying to access stereotypes as opposed to saying what we truly believe. And interestingly, this particular group of students, without any prompting from me, said that one of the phrases that they associated with women was attention seeker. And I really think that there's something there that rightly we encourage men to open up and speak about their experiences of mental illness and poor mental health, but women are being punished when we do exactly that. And that's really a conversation I think that we should be continuing to have after International Women's Day. Sarah Hughes, who again, brilliant, one of my favourite online commentators, and she said, I think shame is profound and complex for women. Shame attached to abuse, trauma, motherhood, body image and identity. And she asked what we can do to try and combat that. I would really welcome your thoughts on shame, and whether shame is in some ways part and parcel of the modern experience of being a woman, and how we can make that better for future generations of girls and women. Samantha responded to my perfectionism video and said, yes, perfectionism is a massive issue to many women with their mental health. Even though I know perfection doesn't exist, I fall into the mental trap of thinking that I'm not good enough. I think we all do that. And I think that this is something that men experience too, but perhaps women are at the sharp end for some of the reasons that I explored in the video. And finally, Eloise, who responded on YouTube because she was worried about being targeted by trolls on Twitter or Instagram, which I think is interesting in of itself, particularly within the context of an International Women's Day discussion around harassment, online harassment and online misogyny, and whether it should be a hate crime. But she said, as a woman on the autistic spectrum, I'm not particularly chatty. And she goes on to describe how she had lots of issues at school, but that they flew under the radar because it was assumed that since she wasn't talking about them, that they didn't exist. So that's just a selection of some of the contributions to the conversation this week. Thank you so much to everybody who got in touch. It's been really interesting and informative for us to hear your views. And at the Mental Health Media Charter, we will do everything we can to try and ensure that these types of gender stereotypes don't impact the mental health of the nation. Let's keep this discussion going. If you've got any comments, we'd love to hear them. And again, happy International Women's Day. Bye.